I am not teaching, I am publicly learning. Hi, welcome to Learning for Life in the UK test, part 488, by doing standing leg gymnastics. And if you participate in the standing leg gymnastics, better sitting on this. First exercise, the feet are standing together. You're doing the moderator. You're going slowly in front of the weight and back. Start a bit carefully and do only a few of these exercises. You could get motion sickness. So the last thing we have here, before we're coming then here to the 20th century, the First World War, is the future of the empire. We want to do one big long down presentation about the Victorian age. And so we will do that also. Around 1900, late 1890s, 1900s beginning, there was discussion about how the empire should continue. There were supporters believing that it increased trade and commerce, and they wanted to expand further. Others said it was overexpanded, and the conflicts in many parts of the empire, such as in India's northwestern frontier or southern Africa, were a drain of resources. Some people did not really want it, saw it that way. It's not completely accurate. Next exercise, we're having one foot in front, we're rolling in front, lifting the heel of the back leg and back, lifting the toes of the front leg. So the many conflicts, and this is a nice express. And so the conflicts in many parts of the empire as problematic as resource draining is also a nice express. But most people of Britain, yet the majority of British people, believed in the empire as a force for good in the world. We will say that after we've talked about Rudyard Kipling, then we will add that. Then we will also mention the Boer War, 1899-1902. And there were the British soldiers, or the British went to war with. There was battling of a British army of British troops, Britain, against the Boer, who were settlers from the Netherlands, just like who were Netherlandic or Dutch settlers from the Netherlands. The war went on for many years. Many people died from fighting and many from disease. They're changing the leg. Some people showed public sympathy with the Boers and the question whether the empire should continue to expand. And following the next century, the second half of the 20th century, but also the first half, I think, following the next century, many of the former colonies, many of the countries, I think I could say many of the former colonies, transitioned from empire to commonwealth. Many of the countries of the empire transitioned orderly, mostly peaceful, to the commonwealth, and they got their independence, being granted their independence. Okay, I'm afraid we're going to end as the end of the Victorian age. Next exercise, legs, they're standing like that. We're going from one side to the other. Okay, what do we all have here? It's not that much, just 5 pages. Okay, Victorian age. She was 18 years old, 1837. She reigned for almost 47 years until 1901. The middle class became more significant. There were also reforms to improve the living conditions. Many people during this extension of the empire during the Victorian period in India, Australia and Africa went abroad. 30 million British citizens went abroad and had a population of 400 million, maybe not add that too. But also people immigrated to the United Kingdom. For example, Russian and Polish Jews. Many settled in London's East End or in Manchester and Leeds. Okay, next exercise. Bring one leg in front, and we go onto the front foot completely and back. Many people also from India and Africa came to Britain to work with stuff. Britain was a lot of trading. The Corn Laws were abolished in 1846. Also trading, also taxing on import things, tariffs were abolished. Grain could cheaply be bought and raw materials. 1847, 10 hours for women and children working. River George and Robert Stevenson pioneering the railway. Many things were built to improve the transport methods, the changing of leg, and also the transport of goods. Canals were built, I think that was not in here, but it was. And there was Irish McKinney Brunel building bridges, rail lines, ships, tunnels. He constructed the Great Western Railway from London Paddington Station to the west, to the southern part, to the West Midlands, and to the west, to Wales. Still in use, the Clifton Suspension Bridge, for example. The Great Exhibition in 1851. UK was the most producer in the world of iron, cotton, and coal. Next exercise, the feet are standing together, and we're going just with the weight onto the toes and back. There was the Crimean War, 1853-1856. First war to be covered extensively by photographs. Most soldiers died from illnesses caught in hospitals and from war bounds. The Victoria Cross was given out for Valour. Florence Nightingale, she trained in Germany 1851-1854, then 1854 to the Crimean War, treating wounded soldiers in Turkey. 1860 establishing the Nightingale Training School for nurses in the St. Thomas Hospital in London. But she's regarded as the founder of modern nursing. In Ireland there was a potato famine. 1 million people died, 1.5 million left. The people were eating mostly potatoes, or potatoes were very important in their diet. Most people were still working in agriculture. Large population groups of Irish in Liverpool, London, Manchester and Glasgow. Irish national movement gained strength. Fenians, complete independence, Charles Farnham, Home Rule. 1832, 1872, 1867, 1832, 1867. What did we have? We had something with 18. We wanted to do another video. I wanted to do another video. Okay, not the corn races, but the calf races. About the abolishing of discriminating laws during the Victorian age. Should be the title. And then we're going to tell that with the property, the right to own property for women, 1870, 1872, 1882. Okay, and then there was the right to vote, 1832, 1867. Then also the women allowed to have property with the Acts of 1870 and 1882. There were the suffrages, and the first group called that were the Women's Social and Political Union, founded in 1803, partly by Emmeline Pankhurst. She also founded in 1889 the Women's Franchise League to fight, to give, to achieve, with a goal to achieve the voting right for women, for married women in local governments. And the suffragettes, for example, the ones with Emmeline Pankhurst, did changing of to railways, civil disobedience all over, smashing windows and setting fire to buildings, and also going on to hunger strike. En weer dan beweegt ze one heel on the ground and leaning in front, position calf. And 28, all women were allowed to vote as men. Then there was, for example, authors like Rudyard Kipling, born 1865, living in UK, India, USA, winning the Nobel Prize in Literature, I forgot to mention it, in 1907. Just the stories, the Jungle Book. If is about advising to be calm and patient, even if other people around are not right, and also not to return hatred, but also not to pretend to be too good. And it was also the time when the end of the 18th century people thought the empire was overexpended. Other people wanted to expand it further to increase commerce and trade. There was a World War 1899-1992. The war were Dutch settlers. People publicly sympathized with them. And the end is when, the following century, during the 20th century, many former countries of the empire transitioned mostly orderly and peaceful to independent countries. Okay, we're having 5 minutes. We're going to try it. I'm going to start the camera, the second one. We are done with the standing leg gymnastics. So let's try. This is a lot. It's not important if I miss one. Victoria, emigration, the trading part, working, Crimean War, Florence Nightingale, Ireland, right to vote. Would it Kipling, Emmeline Pankhurst? Would be better if I could figure it up in this. Let's try it. We're here to learn, mainly to learn. The other thing is the byproduct. The Victorian Age, named after Queen Victoria. She was 18 when she became queen in the year 1837, and she was queen until her death in 1901 for almost 64 years. So the Victorian Age is 1837 until 1901. During that time, the British Empire expanded in Africa and India and Australia and other parts of the world. Many people from Britain left Britain and settled in these other areas of the world. 13 million, the number. There were also people coming to Britain, for example, Russian Jews. And a lot of other things happened. Trading and commerce happened. Industrialization had gone on. The corn laws were abolished in 1847, for example, and 46, and that made it possible that firms were buying grain cheap from other countries and other raw materials also, because the taxes and tariffs on importing goods were abolished. In 1847, when it was made law that women and children can maximum work for 10 hours, so the working conditions got better. Transporting conditions got better. George and Robert Stephenson developed the railway, pioneered in the railway, and a lot of railways were built. For example, the Greater Western Railway from London Paddington Station to the west, to the southern part of England, to the West Midlands and to Wales. That was constructed by Ishmael Kingdom Brunel, an architect who also built bridges and tunnels and railway lines and ships. And some of his buildings, for example, the Clifton Suspension Bridge, are still standing today and are unused. But other things happened also. There was the Crimean War during the Victorian Age. The Crimean War was 1853 until 1856. And that was fought Britain and Turkey and France against Russia on the Crimean Peninsula. It was the first war to be covered extensively by photographs and newspaper stories. And more soldiers died from infections which were caught in hospitals rather than from war wounds. And it was also then the time when the Victoria Cross was given out for soldiers who showed valor. There was Florence Nightingale. She was a nurse in the Crimean War in 1854, which she went with, and she treated soldiers in Turkey. And she improved the conditions of these hospitals so that less people died. And then in 1860, she opened in the St. Thomas Hospital the Nightingale Training School for Nurses, the first of its kind. And so she is seen as the founder of modern nursing. Other things also happened. Now there were, for example, Emmeline Pankhurst. Emmeline Pankhurst founded in the year 1903 the Women's Social and Political Union, WSUP, and they were the first one called the Suffragettes. Now the story is, in 1832 there was the first Reform Act with which more people could vote, and in 1867 a second one with which more people could vote. So they needed less property to have a right to vote, and now also people of a middle class of a working class could vote. But women were still completely excluded. And she already founded, Emmeline Pankhurst, in 1889, the Women's Feature League. And they fought for the right of married women to vote in local elections. And now there were the Chartists in the 1830s and 40s. They wanted for every man in every region, every year, the right to vote and also to be voted for. And now there were the Suffragettes. For example, when that group with Emmeline Pankhurst, Women's Social and Political Union, 1903 founded, and they fought, for example, also the civil obedience for the right to vote. They, for example, committed arson, they chained themselves to railways, they went on hunger strike. And actually in the year 1928, a woman got the full right to vote as men had it. And there were, for example, an authors, for example, Rudyard Kipling, born in 1865 in India, living in the United Kingdom, United States and India. He wrote, for example, If, which is a poem and which advises people to be calm and patient, even if the people around them are not to return hatred, but not to pretend too good. Or he wrote also the Jungle Book. In 1907 he won the literature Nobel Prize. Then there was World War in 1899 until 1903 against Dutch settlers in Africa. Many people sympathized with them, also publicly, and some people started to think that maybe the empire is overexpanded, and then over the course of the 20th century, many countries of the empire gained gradually independence, mostly peacefully. And that is according to the Life in UK Test Handbook on several pages, for example, 45. I don't have time. Thank you very much, and until the next time.